Hi everyone, my name is Isabel. I am a member of the Crossroads team and I'm going to be your Crossroads reader today. As you may have learned in our last video, or if you did not know, it is March, therefore we're doing a series on women's history. Our last video was Women History Makers with Naomi. I highly recommend checking that one out. And today we're going to be reading all about women in STEM. So we have two amazing, very cool books. The Girl with a Mind for Math, the story of Raye Montague, written by Julia Finley Mosca. Such a cool book. And Ada Twist, Scientist by Andrea Beaty. So both very cool books. If you are new here or you are new to this channel, this is the Crossroads YouTube channel. Crossroads is a subsection of the Intersections Club at CCHS, both of which aim to start new conversations and spark dialogue all about topics that we believe are important and just create a more inclusive community for Concord Carlisle. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first book we have is The Girl with a Mind for Math, the story of Raye Montague, and that's written by Julia Finley Mosca. Looks like that. And the back has a little picture of a woman holding a ship. So let's get into it. If there's something you want, but it seems out of reach, here's a story for you. A great truth it will teach. When you focus your mind, you'll succeed through and through, like one bold engineer by the name of Montague. In a state we call Arkansas, one winter day, a baby was welcomed, a girl they called Raye. She was bright as a star, super smart from the start. She was headstrong, this child, not faint of the heart. Yes, this girl had potential. Her granddad was proud. He told her, work hard, you'll stand out from the crowd. Then something she'd cherish when Raye was just 7. He took her to see her first ship. It was heaven. A real submarine! Her eyes opened wide. Who made it? She asked as they followed the guide. Engineers, said the man, giving Raye's head a pat. But my dear, you don't need to know all about that. At the time, the man's insult went right over her head. No, you can't, were the words he had meant, but not said. Engineering, thought Raye, and her life's dream began. Except most people laughed when she told them her plan. Stay strong, said her mom. Use your brains. You'll be fine. There will always be people who pay you no mind, just because you're a girl and just because you are black. Don't let them or the state or your school hold you back. You see, schools in those days were what people call segregated. The black and white students were kept separated. It was wrong, you exclaim. It was dismal, no fooling. And worst of all, white kids received better schooling. But Raye studied hard. She had grit, taught herself. She was gifted in math and read books on the shelf. When the time came for college, she knew what to choose. She learned to build boats, but she got some bad news. Engineering's not taught to black students, they said. Her heart hit the floor. I'll take business instead. She'd learn what she could, and she'd learn the rest later. Their rules were unjust, but that school would not break her. So here we have Raye studying, and I assume this is the man who doesn't let Raye go to college to study engineering, unfortunately. Raye finished with honors. Oh boy, was she a smarty. She said her farewells. There was no time to party. I'm off to a place filled with history's greats, the capital city of all 50 states. Now, finding a job, it turned out that took time. She looked and she looked. Raye was not one to whine. Then it must have been fate. At least, that's what it seems. She was hired to type where they built submarines. So maybe she will get to work with submarines. Let's find out. The Navy, that's right. Oh, but hold on your cheers. So she watched as they worked, and she learned every task, even studied computers by night in a class. Then her big break arrived. The whole staff got the flu. Raye did all of her work, and the engineers' work too. Her boss was in a shock. How? He exploded. From memory, said Raye, and with that, she got promoted. Life should have been swell, yet that wasn't the case. Her boss treated her poorly because of her race. Many people, like him, tried to make her feel small. Raye just held her head high, and she outworked them all. What next? From the White House, there came a command. The president had ordered a ship. Make it grand. And quickly, he added. Well, that didn't fly. All those plans would take engineers and months of supply. Here's the thing about that. When designing a boat, there are thousands of measurements one needs to know. All those numbers take math, and that takes some time. But Raye had been working on something sublime. So here we have Raye working on her boat, and then the president talking to someone about how they need to get that boat designed super quickly. She took a deep breath. I can solve this, she said. I've come up with a system to do it instead. I'll draw the plans faster, she told them. Don't fret. I'll design the first ship by computer. No sweat. How long do you think that might take? What's your guess? Would it take her a month, maybe weeks for success? Well, it took calculations and a lot of caffeine, but Raye finished in hours, just over 18. That is so fast. Oh my goodness. Her program, it worked. All the blueprints were done. The ship was constructed. The engineers were stunned. You did it, they cheered. And her boss had to say that her quick mind for math had in fact saved the day. The end? No, not quite. When Raye's ship was unveiled, only white men could go. And Raye's invite? Not mailed. Say what? You heard right. No invite. That's horrible. In fact, some might say it was downright deplorable. Yet Raye kept her cool, gave her best every day, and in time, all her skills were applauded. Hooray! People learned of her work. Who's this Raye? They demand. When they met her, they stared. They expected a man. Yes, that happened a lot. Many could not believe that a woman of color did all that she'd achieved. Some even thought that Raye was a maid. That's sad, but true. When they'd ordered a drink, she'd say, "Bring me one too." So I guess here's a man at her work ordering a drink from her, and she says, "I want one too." All of her humor and wit served her well through the years, as she battled the hard times with laughs and not tears. And that boss in the Navy, who'd been so unkind, made Raye the first woman to lead ship design. More honors would follow. Her fame picked up steam, and finally, at last, she accomplished her dream. That title she'd worked for, an engineer, hooray! Now the world knows her feats. She is hidden no more. And then we have a plaque that Raye is hanging that says, Raye Montague, engineer. So, the lesson to all is don't ever give up. Take a chance, rock the boat. If it sinks, you can swim. When a storm comes your way, hold your course and don't stress. Never quit. And like Raye, propel straight to success. And then Raye Montague leaves us all a little note that says, Dear reader, if you have a dream like I did, study hard and stay focused. Always remember that just because someone says you can't, doesn't mean that you have to let that stop you. You might have to go in a different direction and it might take you a little longer, but you can achieve your dreams. Raye Montague. And then we have a little picture of her right there. And that's all. What a good story. I had never learned about Raye Montague in school, but definitely appreciative of her as a woman in STEM. Alright guys, so our next book is going to be Ada Twist, Scientist by Andrea Beaty, illustrated by David Roberts. And its cover looks like that. You see Ada Twist right here, and she has a ton of math equations she's doing, and drawings. So, let's get into it. Ada Twist, Scientist. Oops. Ada Marie said not a word till the day she turned 3. She bounced in her crib and looked all around, observing the world, but not making a sound. She learned how to climb and made her big break, with a trail of chaos left in her wake. She ran through the day, chasing each sound and each sight. She didn't slow down till she conked out at night. Her parents were frazzled, but tried not to freak, as Ada grew bigger and still did not speak. Clearly, young Ada, with lots in her head, would have said something to say when it ought to be said. That's just what happened when Ada turned 3. She tore through her house on a fact-finding spree. And she climbed up the clock just as high as she could. Her parents yelled, "Stop!" as all good parents would. Ada's chin quivered, but she did not cry. She took a small breath and simply asked, "Why?" Why does it tick and why does it talk? Why don't we call it a granddaughter clock? Why are there pointy things stuck to a rose? Why are there hairs up inside your nose? She started with why, and then what, and then how, and then when. By bedtime, she came back to why once again. She drifted to sleep as her dazed parents smiled at the curious thoughts of their curious child, who wanted to know what the world was about. They kissed her and whispered, "You'll figure it out." Her parents kept up with their high-flying kid, whose questions and chaos both grew as she did. And so we see her parents surrounded by all of Ada's questions. Some of them are like, what does it do? What is it for? Will it be the same? When? What if? So lots of questions from Ada as a young kid. Even Miss Greer found her hands were quite full when young Ada's chaos wreaked havoc at school. But this much was clear about Miss Ada Twist. She had all the traits of a good scientist. So here's Ada Twist doing some experiments with who would I assume is Miss Greer, who's her teacher at school. Ada was busy that first day of spring, testing the sounds that make mockingbirds sing, when a horrible stench whacked her right in the nose, a pungent aroma that curled up her toes. "Zowie," said Ada, which got her to thinking, what is the source of that terrible stinking? How does a nose know there's something to smell? And does it still stink if there's no nose to tell? She rattled off questions and tapped on her chin. She'd start at the start where she ought to begin. A mystery, a riddle, a puzzle, a quest. This was the moment that Ada loved best. So I think, we'll see. Sounds like Ada's gonna make us experiment. I mean, although we see her brother walking by with his shoes, maybe that's the terrible odor. We don't know. We're gonna find out. Ada did research to learn all she could of smelling and smells, both stinky and good. One hypothesis Ada thought could be true. The terrible stink came from Dad's cabbage stew. She tested and tested, but soon Ada knew it was time to come up with hypothesis 2. Then, zowie, the stink struck again. Just like that. Hypothesis 2. It's caused by a cat. The cat couldn't make such a stink on its own. It needed perfume and some fancy cologne. So young Ada tested. The test was a flop. She started again, but her parents yelled, "Stop!" Oh my goodness, Ada Twist almost put her cat in the washer because she's trying to get rid of the smell. That's pretty crazy stuff, guys. Ada Marie, to the thinking chair, now, by the time we count 3. Enough, said her mother. That's it, said her dad. Her parents were frustrated, frazzled, and mad. Why? Ada questioned. Her mother said, no. What? Ada queried. Her father said, go. You've ruined our supper. You've made the cat stink. Enough with your questions. Now sit there and think. She looked at her parents. Her heart turned to goo. Poor Ada Twist did not know what to do. She sat all alone by herself in the hall, and Ada, once more, could say nothing at all. Poor Ada Twist. And so Ada sat, and she thought about science and stew and the cat, and how her experiments made such a big mess. Does it have to be so? Is that part of success? Are messes a problem? And while she was thinking, what was the source of the terrible stinking? Ada Marie did what scientists do. She asked the smallest question, and then she asked 2. And each of those led her to 3 questions more. And some of those questions resulted in 4. As Ada got thinking, she really dug in. She scribbled her questions and tapped on her chin. She started at why, and then what, and then how, and then when. At the end of the hall, she reached why once again. So, here she is in her little timeout chair. Her parents calmed down, and they came back to talk. They looked at the hallway and just had to gawk. No patch of bare paint could be seen on the wall. The thinking chair was now the great thinking hall. They watched their young daughter, and she sighed as they did. What would they do with this curious kid who wanted to know what the world was about? They smiled and whispered, we'll figure it out. So Ada Twist drew all over her walls. Oh my goodness. And that's what they did, because that's what you do when your kid has a passion and heart that is true. They remade their world. Now they're all in art. Now they're all in the art of helping young Ada sort fiction from fact. She asked lots of questions. How could she resist? It's all in the heart of a young scientist. And as for that smell, what can Ada Twist do but learn all she can with her friends in grade 2? Will they discover the stink that curls toes? Well, that is the question. And someday, who knows? So that's Ada in her 2nd grade class. It's crazy. And then here's a quick note from the author. Women have been scientists for as long as there has been science. They've asked questions and looked for answers to the secrets of the universe, of soil and stars, stalactites and seahorses, glaciers and gravity, brains and black holes, of everything. Ada Marie Twist is named for 2 of the many women whose curiosity and passion led them to make great discoveries. Marie Curie discovered the elements of polonium and radium, and her work led her to the invention of the X-rays. Ada Lovelace was a mathematician and was the very first computer programmer. That is so cool. Learning all kinds of new things today.